As the Finance Minister gets ready to give the final touches to Budget 2015, industry is hoping for bolder reform action to revive growth. Top on the list of priorities is the demand to spur investment by cutting the MAT rate, especially to boost manufacturing and to give a fillip to infrastructure projects. India Inc. also wants the government to loosen its purse strings and up spending on big-ticket infra projects. Now, to boost consumption, business leaders want the Finance Minister to hike income tax exemptions and introduce new investment schemes, especially for gold as the underlying asset. To raise revenues, industry has called for an even more aggressive divestment program and the sale of loss-making public sector units, a further deferral of GAR and a reiteration of the government's commitment to end tax terrorism also on the wish list, along with the usual call for cutting wasteful expenditure. Joining us today to discuss what the Confederation of Indian Industry wants from the budget is the President, Ajay Sriram. Also with us, Chandrajit Banerjee, the Director General of the CII, Naresh Trehan, Chairman of CII's National Committee on Healthcare, and the Chairman and Managing Director of Medanta, the Medicity, and Sumant Sinha, Co-Chairman of CII's National Committee on Renewable Energy, and the Chairman and CEO of Renew Power Ventures Private Limited. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us. Mr. Sriram, let me start by putting forward the list of recommendations that you've sent to the Finance Ministry. And I'm only talking now about the suggestions pertaining to the direct tax proposals. Corporate tax rate for domestic companies to be reduced to 25%, MAT levy to be moderated to 10%, DDT rate to be reduced to 10%, surcharge may be removed for all taxpayers. You want a dream budget, Ajay Sriram. Is this really possible given the fiscal constraints?
I'll be honest, the way we looked at it is what we think is good for the economy and for economic growth in India. We have talked about giving incentives or making it easier for investments to happen so that it becomes viable. So one side is the investment, as you rightly said, these 4-5 areas. But the other side, we've also said, is one must move towards increasing consumption and savings. And for that, we recommended, instead of 2.5 lakhs as the cutoff for income tax, please raise that. Please give other benefits to individuals who can have savings or have money for investments.
You know, year after year, sir, we've discussed the possibility of MAT being done away with, or at least the MAT rate being reduced. This time around, do you believe that on MAT, this year, perhaps we could finally see some relief? It's part of your recommendations.
In 2007, when MAT was implemented, it was 7.5%. By last year, it's come to 18.5%. And this is in the overall package of the government's aggressive push for the Make in India campaign. Ultimately, to make in India and get manufacturing to 25% of GDP from about 15% of GDP, we have to do something different. There's a phrase which makes a lot of sense. If you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. So we have to make a change.
Okay, Sumant Sinha, let me just take that point forward with you, because one of the suggestions and recommendations is that MAT rate should actually be lowered to about 10%, or if not exempted altogether as far as large infrastructure projects are concerned. Given this government's initiative on the Make in India, the manufacturing in India, and of course the Smart City project and so on and so forth, and the sector that you're yourself involved with, where the government is trying to attract private sector as well as foreign direct investment, do you see relief coming in, especially as far as the infrastructure projects are concerned?
Well, you know, Shireen, it's hard to say whether in fact we will get the relief or not. I think there is, as Ajay said, there's a very strong rationale for giving us the relief. And it's not really just us. I think if you look at it from the government standpoint, if they take the view that if they reduce the MAT rate by 10%, it immediately brings down the cost of setting up new projects, for example. Prices to some extent come down. It hopefully therefore leads to more investments taking place, and if more investments take place, there's more job creation, and the government gets its revenues in in perhaps more indirect manners, but certainly does get the revenue as well.
Well, I don't know if the government is going to decide to pick the healthcare sector as one of the sectors that they would want to focus on as far as this budget is concerned. But Dr. Trehan, we've been talking about infrastructure status for the healthcare sector for the longest time now. Do you believe that maybe this time around you won't go away disappointed?
I think that there are other ways of making up for not having the money to, or the amount of money that you should be spending. And the thing to do is, one, to align all the assets on the ground that are available today, whether they are in the government, whether they are in the private or in the NGO sector, and make them perform better, and I think 50% more healthcare can be provided if we do it in tandem in an integrated fashion.
Let me ask you two direct questions. A, do you believe that there is going to be any possibility of seeing a hike as far as the health budget is concerned? Because we're woefully low, just about a little over 1%, lower than 2% of our GDP actually goes into healthcare spending. Do you see any possibility or any room for a hike in healthcare spending? Will that come by way of a healthcare cess, which is what has been discussed and debated over the last couple of months? We don't know if it's coming or not. And thirdly, do you believe that beyond giving some income tax exemptions as far as medical expenses are concerned, this is not really going to be a sector on top of the government's agenda?
No, first of all, it should be, because it's a very important agenda for the disenfranchised people of our country who do not have access to healthcare today. It's a very important issue to address. Now, I do believe that there will not going to be a major increase in the health budget. If it is, most welcome that 3 years or 4 years of our demand gets fulfilled. But I would not be disappointed if it doesn't happen. But like you want to make it accessibility easier for people, and like we have suggested, increase the RSBY from 30 to 60,000 rupees. Give a 2 lakh cover to each family per year for catastrophic illness. This is not going to cost the government more than 9,000 crores, because 9,000 crores can be contributed by the people to get into the scheme. The things that are also on the front burner are to give larger exemption from 15,000 to 25,000 for healthcare deduction, and also for the insurance, encourage insurance and give a higher deduction. I think these are indirect measures where the government doesn't lose anything.
I agree with you, sir, but as I said, I hope that this time around you won't go away disappointed as far as the healthcare sector's aspirations are concerned, because these are issues that we've been talking about for very, very long when it comes to dealing with budget-related issues. But CV, let me ask you now, as on two specific issues, on retrospective taxation, where this government has reiterated several times over that it intends to end tax terrorism, it doesn't intend to go back to an era of retrospective taxation. Do you expect the finance minister to solidify that commentary and reiterate that commentary? And specifically on the issue of GAR, I know that industry has sought another 2-year deferral. Do you believe that the government will give in to that demand and defer GAR by 2 years, or perhaps even indefinitely?
I think this is not the time for GAR to be implemented, and there is no doubt about that the government would look at it very positively. And we are looking at when the growth really picks up, when the economy really picks up, that we will really look at that GAR may be considered at that point in time. And I don't see a reason why the government would not really look at it favorably. And looking at the other areas of kickstarting investments, I think there is where we need to have a real out-of-the-box thinking, and there is where we will look at the budget to be something which is going to be very path-breaking. And if we can look at assets which are locked in, more than 2 lakh crores of funds which are lying not invested in the public sector, the public sector assets for such the SIC units, if these are liquidated and are redeployed into asset creation, obviously that is into infrastructure, we will see manufacturing also pick up.